The picture you're looking at is called The Defense of New Ulm. It was painted by Alexander Schwendinger. He signed the name in the lower right-hand corner. You can barely see it probably. And he put the date as 1891. Alexander Schwendinger, coincidentally, was born in the same year that this event took place. This is the Second Battle of New Ulm, which took place on August 23rd, 1862. Schwendinger was born in Austria in 1862, and he came over here as a young teenager with his family, and they lived in New Ulm, where his father was a stone cutter and a painter too. His father, Ignaz, taught Alex the rudiments of painting, and Alexander also went and attended art school. And in 1891, he worked together with another famous New Ulm person, Anton Gog, who was the father of Wanda Gog, the children's literature author, painting houses and painting churches like the Holy Trinity Cathedral in New Ulm. And then he decided to do this rather large painting showing an historical event in New Ulm's history. On that date, about 650, 700 Dakota Indians attacked New Ulm and surrounded the city. And the New Ulm fight was basically in the center of the city. They had built a barricade around the center blocks of the city. And if you look way over to the right in the painting, you can see sort of a barricade there right behind that log house. And the Dakota were moving up from the south, which is to your left. They were moving toward the barricade, and it looked like they might overcome the barricade and attack the town and kill the women and children. And so Charles Flandreau, who was in charge of the defense of New Ulm at this time, decided he had to do something desperate. The Dakota had taken possession of that log cabin that you can see there, and it looked like it was about to be ended. So Flandreau took about 30 to 50 men, and they jumped across the barricade to your right there and charged the Dakota, screaming, as Flandreau says, like Comanches. And they attacked it, and the Dakota were probably surprised at what had happened, that the men actually came out of the barricade, and they turned around and retreated to the south. As you look at the scene, you can see a couple things. You can see, of course, that Kiesling house, which is the log house. In back, you can see a windmill, which was the Ribeke mill, which was up on State Street. And you can see the men gathered over to the right side. If you look carefully at those men, you see there's one man with a sword out, and if you look very closely, he has his other hand in a sling. That's Jacob Nix. He was wounded twice in this battle, once in the shoulder, which is why he's carrying his arm in this sling, and he also had a finger shot off. Jacob Nix was one of the famous people of New Ulm. He wrote a history of the attack on New Ulm, and he had born in Germany, and he had participated in the German Revolution in 1848, and then when that failed, he came over to New Ulm and ran a grocery store or mercantile business. And he was probably still alive when Schwendinger painted this painting. And no doubt when Schwendinger did this in 1891, he went to Jacob Nix and said, all right, now tell me what happened on that great day so that I can paint this picture. And so Jacob Nix told him. You notice that nowhere in that group of men does it appear that Charles Flandreau was there. Jacob Nix didn't agree necessarily with what Charles Flandreau did in his leadership in the defense of New Ulm. In fact, he was very opposed to the evacuation of New Ulm, which occurred 2 days later. And so Schwendinger painted the picture without Charles Flandreau. You can see a couple of other men that might be famous too. There's a Hauenstein, which was a brewer in Minnesota, or in New Ulm. And then if you look over on the Dakota side, you'll see this very clearly, this Dakota Indian on a white horse. It isn't quite sure who that was, but the accounts usually suggest that that might have been Wabasha, who was one of the chiefs of the Dakota. Here's a band of settlers, farmers, shopkeepers, merchants, who are defending the town of New Ulm and defending their women and children against this onslaught of Dakota. And Nix, in a very heroic position, raises his sword to spur on his settlers and his townspeople to fight against the Dakota. And they won. And I suspect that everyone who visited Schwendinger when he was painting it and looked at his painting when he was finished, said, yes, that's exactly what happened. This was the Battle of New Ulm, and this is where we held off these Dakota people. We don't know what Flandreau said when he looked at the picture, if he ever saw it. He was still alive at that time, but he was not in the New Ulm area. Nor do we know, unfortunately, what the Dakota thought, if that is the way they remembered the battle, or if they had a different picture entirely of what happened on that Saturday in 1862.